know all of them, but I didn't know the story. And it was the most tremendous screenplay. It was human and touching and authentic, and it was about music, which has been a huge part of my life for as long as I can remember. And then immediately I started to research Hank, and I realized that he is this extraordinary link in the chain of the history of contemporary music. And that, you know, when you listen to Move It On Over, you can hear Rock Around the Clock coming down the pike 5 years later. And to read about what Bob Dylan had said about him and Bruce Springsteen, and then to see the covers that Johnny Cash and Ray Charles and Tony Bennett did of Hank songs, understanding that the Rolling Stones, when they sang about honky-tonk women, they were somehow referencing all that. I thought it was the most extraordinary challenge, and one that I accepted with respect and joy, because I could just relate to the fact that he wanted to bring so much joy to so many people. And it seemed to be a story about performing and the spiritual cost on one man of his gift. And I just found it so compelling. I couldn't say no.
He's so much more eloquent than I am. I read the script and immediately, and the same, like I knew who Hank Williams was. I wasn't necessarily clear on his story and his life. But I loved the humanity in the script, and I loved that she was a woman that a lot of people had problems with, and I felt like I understood where she could be coming from, and felt like I could add to that with compassion and empathy. And then met with Mark, and we had the best conversation about it, so that's what I did.
We can squeeze probably a couple more. So I'm going to go up to the balcony, jumping up and down, and then the final question. So right up top.
I just wanted to know if you see yourself, if you become the character, you are the character, or do you see the character as a character, you separate yourself from it?
I mean, as I was approaching it, I understood my responsibility. And I understood that a large number of people feel a great deal about Hank. And so I realized I had to extend myself towards him in some way, in every respect, in terms of the way I looked, the way I sounded, but also commit to the sincerity that he had as an artist. And it's funny to look back on, because as I remember it, he seemed very far away, and then the more work I did on it, the more I sang and the more I played, and there was no real time to breathe in the shoot. I mean, I was in almost every scene, and I guess a part of me was him for that time. But I said to Mark once, it's not Hank, obviously, it's not me, but it's who I might have been if I had Hank's life.
Can't say it better than that.
And the final question was just right here.
Hi Tom, hi Elizabeth. Thank you for signing my poster earlier. You missed us though. Yeah. Sorry. Okay, you were not right. So my question is, without any previous vocal experiences, what was like training every day? I know that you've been doing vocal trainings for the film. What was it like for both of you? What were some challenges?
Well, that was the question was, what was the vocal training like? And I have to say, it was one of the most joyful experiences of my life. I went down to stay at the house of a very respected musician called Rodney Crowell in Nashville, Tennessee. And I lived with him for 5 weeks. And he has a little sound studio in the back of his house, and a very sweet and comforting little spotted dog who was my soulmate for the duration. and we basically sang. We made demos, and we talked about Hank. He himself had seen Hank on his father's shoulders at the age of 2. And and we talked about the South at that time, and it was huge fun, and we laughed a lot. Of course we hit bumps in the road, but he was so generous and so patient and so kind to me, and he always used to try and drill. He used to say, "Tommy boy, back in England there, your folk music is you're singing right on the beat. You're sitting right on top of it. You're singing. You sound like a marching band. We got to shake you up, and you got to sit back on the beat. You got to just glide behind it. You got to swim through it. You got to loosen you up, man." It was a pleasure.